Hi class, and welcome to the video, Understanding the Quiz Project. This video will help you understand our next major assignment in the course, the quiz project. First of all, like before, everything that I'm going to show you comes from the assignments folder. If you click on that folder, you'll get to the folder for the assignment. And here we are. After you click on the folder, you can see the quiz project is the second link. So everything I'm going to show you, the instructions and the rubric, the link to submit are in that folder. Once you click on that assignment folder, you'll see the quiz project folder, as I said. And once you click on the quiz project folder, you'll be here. At the top, you'll see a link for the instructions that we're about to go over and the grading scale. And you'll also see a link for you to test what's called the Flesch-Kincaid reading levels. And that'll become clearer in just a moment when I explain it. Finally, you'll see the quiz project link to submit. Your quiz project is worth 15% of your grade, and it's due on April 5th. Let's get started with the instructions. First of all, the purpose of this quiz is for you to develop your own quiz, not to use one from the internet. So you're going to develop a quiz based on the best practices that you've been learning. Your quiz must be at a second grade level or higher. No preschool, kindergarten, or first grade quizzes, because these would not be developmentally appropriate, particularly for children who are just learning to read. Your quiz should be completely your own. What I advise people is don't go out looking for questions on the internet. Even if you don't intend to, you'll use questions that are similar to ones you have seen. I'd much rather see questions that need improvement that are your own than questions that you find on the internet, because that's not the purpose of the assignment. Now, I have been asked from time to time, why do we have to do this? Because there are so many quizzes on the internet. Well, the reason is you don't have to do it more than once, but doing it once helps you understand the difference between a good quiz item and a poor quiz item. So that when you're evaluating quizzes that you find on the internet, for example, when you're classroom teachers, you'll have a much better sense of what aligns with your learning targets, your learning objectives, and which are quality items. You'll also come to understand that it's not easy to design a quiz. That's almost always the feedback I get. I thought this process would be easier, but I learned a lot. So back to the instructions. So don't use anything from an internet source. If I find that you have used it, I'm going to have to ask you to redo the assignment. Your quiz should contain 10 multiple choice items, 3 binary items, and so you'll recall that binary items mean things that have 2 answers, true or false. A fact or opinion might be a binary item, but most people use true or false. 1 matching item with 4 or more premises. So the whole matching item counts as 1 item. And premises, you'll recall, are in the left side, so at least 4 things in the left column. And you can review your textbook for how to set that up. 1 constructed response, like a short answer or an essay, something where the students have to come up with their own response. So let's talk about what you need to do to include in your paper. The first thing you need to include is the grade level. What grade level will your quiz target? As I said, this should be grade 2 or up. The Flesch-Kincaid reading level and readability analysis. This week you're learning more about that, but basically it's what grade level is good for how you've worded your quiz and whether your quiz is readable. And so you'll learn a lot more about that. Your grade level, your reading level should be plus or minus 1 grade level from your student's grade level that you're targeting. So let's say you're targeting 3rd grade. Then your reading level should be somewhere between 2nd grade and 4th grade. Any higher is going to be difficult for some students. Any lower, it's going to be not challenging enough. Reading ease should be 60% or greater, and again, don't worry about it if you haven't done that assignment. That'll become clearer after you do this week's assignment. You should also include an answer key, an answer to each item. Some students like to put this at the end as a separate paper, a separate page, and other students simply highlight the answers. A rationale for choosing the types of items that you selected based on best practices. The biggest mistake students make on this section is they'll write their own opinion, and that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for, there's a section in your textbook that actually explains what kinds of topics and things, kinds of skills lend themselves better to essay or to true false or to multiple choice. So complex topics, topics that require a lot of analysis probably lend themselves better to essay. And so review that textbook for when you would select each type of item, and then justify your choices in the rationale section with citations from the textbook. If you don't, then you'll probably lose points. A reflection needs to be included, and as you've done probably with your interview assignment, with some of the other assignments in your course, a reflection is a deep and meaningful reflection that includes some or all of the following: lessons learned from the assignment, things you'll take away for classroom practice, what surprised you, what challenged you, what you liked, and you may be able to think about more reflective questions. The point here is not just a conclusion. You don't just write, I went and I did this quiz and I enjoyed it, the end, because that's not a reflection, that's a conclusion. A reflection is you looking back and reflecting on the process so that you can solidify in your mind meaningfully the things that you will take forward. So just some strategies for success. You always start with a standard. The standard is your roadmap. So look through that folder, find a standard, write a couple of learning targets, and then decide how you would assess them. And remember, the rule is, as we've said before, standards and learning objectives or targets and your quiz items must all be aligned. So you can't have a standard that covers exponents in algebra and a learning target that covers exponents, and then a quiz that covers dividends. You have to everything has to be aligned. I put a tip sheet in the folder that says these are the way you write quiz items. Please be sure to review that tip sheet. So there's a lot of instructions. For example, when you're doing your multiple choice, you alphabetize A, B, C, D. So you alphabetize your responses. If you are using multiple choice with dates, you order those from start to finish. And there are a lot of tips in there that if you don't use them, I'm going to highlight and say you need to see tip number whatever, and you're going to have to go look it up anyway. Take your test. Sometimes you find errors by doing this. And then have peers, or this is even better, find a student or child that's the age that your test is intended for, and have that person read over your test and give you feedback. Sometimes they'll say, oh, I don't know what this word means, or this is confusing, and that's a really good way to clear your test up. And here's an important part: do not wait until 11 o'clock the night before it's due, because creating a strong quiz or test takes time, concentration, and practice. You can see here, this is a grading scale for the project. Why don't I call this a rubric? Well, we're going to get into the difference between a grading scale and a rubric later in the course. But basically a rubric, if this were a rubric, it would have levels. So what would you get for 1 point? What would you get for 2 points? What would you get for 3 points? And under each of those levels, you would have a description of what your paper would be like for a 1 point level or a 2 point level. Here, instead, we're just listing each section and saying how many points it's possibly worth. It doesn't say exactly what it looks like at each level. But that's a grading scale, and I encourage you to look through there to find out how to, just as a checklist, to make sure that you're doing everything correctly. Here's the second part of that grading scale. You can see test layout and looking at those tips. That's all factored in your grade. So if you have any questions, please, I'm happy to meet with people. I've been meeting with students. It's not a problem. Email me if you have any questions at all. I'm happy to help you out. And I'd rather do it before than after you submit because we can get a lot of things cleared up. InHomeRunner at mercy.edu. Thanks, everybody.